So there I was, Jake Murphy, sitting in my government cubicle on what I thought would be just another boring Tuesday, when the sky decided to get really, really crowded. Picture this. You're having your morning coffee, scrolling through cat videos like any reasonable human being, when suddenly every news channel starts screaming about massive alien ships blotting out the sun. And I mean massive. These weren't your friendly neighborhood UFOs doing crop circles for kicks. No, these were city-sized death machines that made Independence Day look like a toy commercial. The Zephyrian Empire had arrived, and they were about as subtle as a brick through a window. Their flagship alone stretched across half of Manhattan, casting shadows that probably gave every vampire in New York the best day of their undead lives. The hull gleamed with this sickly purple metal that hurt your eyes to look at, covered in more weapons than a Texas gun show. Smaller ships swarmed around it like angry wasps, each one probably capable of turning Rhode Island into a smoking crater. Then came the transmission. Captain Vexstar, their supreme commander, decided to grace us lowly humans with his presence via every screen on the planet. Picture a 7-foot-tall cross between a praying mantis and someone who definitely peaked in high school. 4 arms, bug eyes the size of dinner plates, and an attitude that screamed, "I'm compensating for something." His voice had this annoying electronic distortion that made him sound like Darth Vader's pretentious cousin. "Pitiful humans," he announced, because apparently the Galactic Empire's communication department hadn't updated their villain handbook since the 1980s. "I am Captain Vexstar of the Zephyrian Empire. Your pathetic little world has been selected for assimilation. You have exactly 72 of your Earth hours to surrender, unconditionally, or we will demonstrate why civilizations across 17 galaxies tremble at our name." Real original stuff, right? I've seen more creativity in cereal box prizes. The guy went on for another 10 minutes about humanity's inevitable doom, our primitive technology, and how resistance was futile. Classic supervillain monologue material. Meanwhile, I'm watching this unfold from the Emergency Command Center in Washington, where I'd been dragged as the alien contact specialist, which was a fancy way of saying I once wrote a paper on xenobiology that 3 people read. Panic was spreading faster than a Black Friday stampede. Stock markets crashed, people were maxing out credit cards on survival gear, and every doomsday prepper in America was having the smuggest day of their lives. Social media exploded with everything from prayer chains to conspiracy theories about how this was obviously elaborate Netflix marketing stunt. But here's the thing about humanity that Captain Bug Eyes didn't understand yet. When we're backed into a corner, we don't just fight back. We get weird. Really, really weird. And weird was exactly what we were about to give him. Within 6 hours of Captain Vexstar's dramatic announcement, every world leader was crammed into the most secure video conference in human history. Presidents, prime ministers, kings, queens, and that one guy from Luxembourg who nobody was quite sure why he was there, all arguing about humanity's response to imminent annihilation. The Joint Chiefs wanted to nuke everything. The diplomats wanted to negotiate. The scientists wanted to study the aliens. The economists were somehow trying to figure out how to tax them. It was like watching a really expensive circus where everyone was simultaneously on fire. Then President Martinez dropped the bombshell that made everyone else sound reasonable. "I propose we send Grandma Kowalski." The silence that followed could have powered a small city. You could literally hear General Patterson's brain trying to process this information and failing spectacularly. "Ma'am," he finally managed, "did you just suggest we respond to an alien invasion with someone's grandmother?" "Not just someone's grandmother," Martinez replied with the confidence of a person who had clearly lost her mind. "Mildred Kowalski from Sheboygan, Wisconsin. 78 years old, retired librarian, 5-time pie contest winner, and according to our psychological profile, capable of making a Navy SEAL feel guilty about not calling his mother." I'm standing there in the back of the room, watching humanity's leadership seriously discuss deploying a senior citizen against interstellar conquerors, and honestly, this felt about right for 2024. The president continued. "Our analysts have determined that every known species in the galaxy shares certain universal concepts. Family structures, elder respect, and maternal authority. The Zephyrians are no exception. Their own culture reveres the wisdom of their elders, particularly maternal figures." "So your plan," said the British Prime Minister, because someone had to be the voice of reason, "is to weaponize grandmotherly disappointment?" "Exactly." 20 minutes later, I'm in a government car speeding toward Wisconsin because apparently my job description now included Alien Grandmother Deployment Specialist. We found Mildred Kowalski exactly where her files said she'd be, in her garden, terrorizing weeds with the focused intensity of a woman who had spent 40 years making teenagers return overdue library books. She was everything you'd expect from a Midwestern grandmother, and absolutely nothing you'd expect from humanity's last hope. 5 feet tall, silver hair in a practical bun, wearing a floral dress that had seen better decades, and carrying a purse that probably qualified as a concealed weapon in 17 states. "Mrs. Kowalski," I called out, still not entirely sure this wasn't an elaborate prank. She looked up from her petunias with the expression of someone who had dealt with enough nonsense for several lifetimes. "If you're here about the noise complaint, I already told Mr. Henderson that my wind chimes are perfectly reasonable." "Ma'am, I'm Jake Murphy with the State Department. We need your help with a situation involving extraterrestrial visitors." She blinked once, processed this information with the calm efficiency of someone who had raised 6 children, and simply said, "Well, it's about time. Are they staying for dinner?" Getting Grandma Kowalski to the alien flagship was surprisingly easy. The Zephyrin, confident in their superiority, agreed to receive Earth's representative aboard their command vessel. They probably expected some terrified diplomat, or maybe a general waving a white flag. What they got was a 78-year-old woman in sensible shoes, carrying a purse that could double as a battering ram, and an attitude that had survived decades of PTA meetings. The transporter beam deposited us in what I assumed was their version of an intimidation chamber. Walls covered in pulsing alien hieroglyphs, dramatic lighting that would make a nightclub jealous, and technology that hummed ominously in frequencies designed to make humans nervous. Grandma Kowalski looked around, sniffed once, and delivered her first devastating blow. "Well, this is certainly dark. Don't you people believe in proper lighting? No wonder you're all so cranky." Captain Vexter materialized in front of us with a theatrical swirl of energy, his forearms spread wide, bug eyes glowing with menace. "Trembling human, you stand before the might of the Zephyrian Empire. I am Captain Vexter, destroyer of worlds, conqueror of—" "Oh, for heaven's sake," Grandma interrupted, rummaging through her purse. "Hold still, dear. You've got something in your eye." Before anyone could react, she had produced a tissue and was advancing on the 7-foot alien warrior like he was a toddler with a runny nose. Vextar actually took a step back. What? You dare to—" He sputtered in what I can only describe as existential confusion. "I dare to what? Help you clean up? Young man, when was the last time you had a proper meal? You're nothing but chitin and attitude, and don't think I didn't notice those scuff marks on your armor. What would your mother say?" The bridge went dead silent, except for the sound of alien technology humming nervously. Captain Vextar's mandibles clicked frantically. My mother has been honored in the great halls of Zephyr Prime for her contributions to the war effort." "That's nice, dear. Does she know you're out here bullying planets instead of settling down and giving her grandchildren?" I watched a galactic conqueror experience what I can only describe as a complete system reboot. His eyes dimmed, brightened, dimmed again, while his brain tried to process being scolded by someone's grandmother. You do not understand the magnitude of—" he began weakly. "Oh, I understand perfectly," Grandma said, now examining the bridge with the critical eye of someone who had spent decades maintaining a household. "Look at this place. When was the last time anyone cleaned these consoles? And what is that smell? It smells like teenage boy socks in here." She turned to address the crew, who were watching this interaction like they were witnessing their god have a nervous breakdown. "Don't you boys take care of yourselves? This ship is a disgrace. Your mothers would be ashamed." And that, ladies and gentlemen, was the moment humanity discovered that maternal disappointment is apparently a universal constant across all known species. What happened next can only be described as watching a master craftsman at work, if that craftsman specialized in psychological demolition, using nothing but concern and mild disapproval. Grandma Kowalski had somehow convinced Captain Vextar to give her a tour of the ship, not demanded, not negotiated for, but simply announced that she wanted to see how you boys are living up here. And the most feared military commander in 17 galaxies just went along with it. "This is our tactical command center," Vextar said, gesturing weakly at a room full of holographic displays showing Earth's defenses. His voice had lost all its electronic menace, and now sounded like a teenager showing his messy room to his aunt. Grandma examined the displays with the same expression she probably used on overdue library books. And when was the last time you cleaned these screens? I can barely see through all the fingerprints. How do you expect to invade anything if you can't even see what you're doing?" A junior officer, who looked like a cross between a lizard and someone's disappointed middle manager, started frantically wiping down the displays with his sleeve. Lieutenant Kexnor, Vextar barked, trying to reassert some authority. Cease that immediately! But Captain, the lieutenant whimpered, she's right about the fingerprints. Grandma had moved on to inspecting the crew quarters. The first room she peered into belonged to what I assumed was their equivalent of a sergeant. The alien warrior, built like a tank with anger management issues, was hastily shoving what looked like alien comic books under his sleeping platform. "Oh my," Grandma said, and those two words carried more devastating power than any weapon in the Zephyrian arsenal. "When did you last change these bedsheets? And what is this smell? It's like someone forgot to do laundry for a month." The sergeant, who probably could have bench-pressed a small planet, turned a shade of purple that I'm pretty sure indicated deep shame in his species. The laundry facilities are. We've been on campaign for. No excuses, young man. Your mother didn't raise you to live in filth. Look at me when I'm talking to you. That's better. Now, where do you keep your clean linens? By this point, Captain Vextar was following behind us like a guilty child, watching his crew of hardened space warriors getting reorganized by a grandmother with a purse full of tissues and what appeared to be homemade cookies. The real breakdown began in the mess hall. "And what do you call this?" Grandma asked, poking at something that looked like it had been scraped off the bottom of a space boot. "Nutripaste, ma'am," replied the cook, a creature that resembled a nervous octopus. "It contains all essential vitamins and minerals required for optimal." "This is not food," Grandma declared with the authority of someone who had been feeding people for 7 decades. "This is barely edible slime. How do you expect these boys to conquer anything when they're malnourished? Look at them. Skin and bones, all of them. Well, chitin and bones, but you get my point." She turned to Captain Vextar, who had been growing progressively smaller throughout this tour. "And you, young man, you're supposed to be in charge here. When did you last have a proper meal, not this paste nonsense? A real meal with vegetables and proper seasoning." We are warriors of the Empire," Vextar said weakly. "We do not require." "You don't require nutrition, you don't require basic hygiene, you don't require clean living spaces?" Each question hit like a precision strike. "What kind of leader are you? What would your mother say if she saw you letting your crew live like this?" That did it. Captain Vextar, destroyer of worlds, conqueror of star systems, terror of the Outer Rim, sat down heavily in the nearest chair and put his head in all 4 of his hands. "She would be very disappointed," he whispered. What followed was the most complete military surrender in the history of interstellar warfare, and it happened without firing a single shot. Grandma Kowalski pulled out a chair next to the broken alien commander and sat down with the practiced ease of someone who had comforted countless people through countless crises. She reached into her purse, which I was beginning to suspect violated several laws of physics with how much stuff she kept in there, and produced a thermos. "Here, dear," she said, pouring what smelled like chicken soup into the cap. "Drink this, you'll feel better." Captain Vextar stared at the offering like it might be poisoned, which, given his current mental state, it might as well have been. I cannot. The Empire does not." "Oh, hush. The Empire isn't here right now. Just you, me, and some nice warm soup." She pressed the cup into his primary hands. "Now, tell Grandma what's really bothering you." And that, my friends, was the moment I watched a galactic overlord have a complete therapeutic breakthrough in real time. "My grandmother," Vextar began, his voice cracking like a teenager's. "Grand Matriarch Zexilia. She raised me after my parents died in the Spiral Wars. She always said I should use my position to help people, not hurt them. But the Empire, they said conquest was honorable, that strength was all that mattered." Grandma nodded knowingly. "And what do you think your grandmother would say about you threatening to destroy entire planets?" The dam burst. This 7-foot alien warrior, surrounded by weapons capable of cracking moons, started sobbing into his soup while confessing his deepest insecurities to a retired librarian from Wisconsin. "She would be so ashamed of me," he wailed. "I haven't even contacted her in 3 cycles because I knew she would disapprove of my assignment. I've become everything she taught me not to be. I'm a bully with a big spaceship, and I don't even know why I'm doing it anymore." There, Grandma said, patting his armored shoulder like he was a crying child with a scraped knee. "The first step is admitting you've made mistakes. Now, what are we going to do to fix this?" By this point, the entire bridge crew had gathered around, watching their commanding officer get therapy from someone's grandmother, and instead of being shocked or embarrassed, they looked relieved, like they'd been waiting for someone, anyone, to give them permission to stop being the bad guys. Lieutenant Kexnor stepped forward hesitantly. Ma'am, if I may, many of us have families back home. Children, parents, mates. We joined the military to protect them, not to terrorize innocent worlds. Of course you did, sweetheart, Grandma said, somehow managing to comfort the entire bridge crew simultaneously. You're all good boys at heart. You've just been following bad orders from people who forgot what really matters. She stood up and clapped her hands together with the authority of someone calling a family meeting to order. All right then. Here's what we're going to do. First, you're all going to contact your families and tell them you love them. When did any of you last call home? The silence was deafening. Exactly what I thought. Second, we're going to clean up this ship from top to bottom. I don't care if you can vaporize planets, you're going to learn to do laundry properly. Third, instead of threatening Earth, you're going to help us fix some problems down there. Help? Vextar asked, looking confused. But we are conquerors. We're conquerors, Grandma corrected firmly. Now you're going to be good neighbors. Earth has climate change, pollution, hunger, diseases that need curing. You boys have technology that could solve all of that. Think about how proud your families would be if you came home as heroes who saved worlds instead of destroyed them. Captain Vextar straightened up, and for the first time since we'd boarded his ship, he looked like an actual leader instead of a scared bully. You really think we could do that? Make a positive difference? I know you can, dear. You just needed someone to remind you what you're really capable of. She turned to address the entire crew, her voice carrying the kind of authority that came from decades of making people want to be better than they were. Now, who wants to help me make some proper food for everyone? And don't think you're getting out of calling your mothers. All of you, tonight. The most feared military force in 17 galaxies spent the rest of the day learning to make casseroles and writing overdue letters home. 3 weeks later, I'm standing in the Rose Garden watching the President of the United States sign the most bizarre peace treaty in human history, with a 7-foot alien who kept asking if anyone wanted seconds on the potato salad. The official document was called the Kowalski Accords, which should tell you everything you need to know about how this whole situation had evolved. The Zephian Empire hadn't just surrendered to Earth. They'd been adopted by it. Specifically, they'd been adopted by Grandma Kowalski, who had somehow become the unofficial ambassador to the galaxy without anyone actually appointing her to the position. Article 7, President Martinez read aloud, trying to maintain her dignity while announcing terms that sounded like they'd been negotiated at a church potluck, states that all Zephyrian vessels will maintain clean living quarters and provide nutritious meals for their crews, subject to monthly inspections by designated Terran maternal oversight officers. Captain Vextar, who now insisted everyone call him Vex and had somehow acquired a world's best Space Uncle coffee mug, nodded enthusiastically. We have also established mandatory family communication protocols. Every crew member must contact their loved ones at least twice per standard cycle, or face remedial relationship counseling. The transformation had been remarkable. What started as an invasion fleet had become Earth's most enthusiastic volunteer organization. Zephyrin ships were now stationed around the globe, using their advanced technology to clean up ocean plastic, reverse desertification, and provide free medical treatment to anyone who needed it. They'd cured 3 major diseases, solved the energy crisis, and somehow made vegetables taste better through some kind of alien seasoning technique that Grandma swore was just paprika, but from space. The really impressive part was watching hardened alien warriors get genuinely excited about community service projects. Lieutenant Kexnor had become passionate about reforestation and wouldn't shut up about his new hobby of growing earth flowers in the ship's hydroponics bay. The former weapons officer, a creature that looked like a tank with anger issues, now ran a free tutoring program for struggling students, and had developed an inexplicable love of finger painting. The most significant change, I explained to the gaggle of reporters who were still trying to wrap their heads around this story, is in their military doctrine. The Zephyrian Empire has officially restructured from a conquest-based organization to what they're calling a Galactic Neighborhood Improvement Initiative. What I didn't mention was that this had apparently spread beyond just Vex's fleet. Word had gotten back to the Zephyrian homeworlds about what had happened here, and now other species were requesting Terran diplomatic intervention in their conflicts. Apparently, news of Grandma Kowalski's success had reached the far corners of the galaxy, and everyone wanted their own conflict resolution specialist with maternal authority. The woman herself was holding court near the refreshment table, surrounded by alien dignitaries who were asking for her cookie recipe and advice on how to improve morale among their own crews. She'd somehow convinced 3 different galactic ambassadors to call their mothers while simultaneously organizing a bake sale to fund refugee relief efforts on some planet I couldn't pronounce. "Mrs. Kowalski," a reporter called out, "what's your secret to successfully negotiating with hostile alien forces?" Grandma looked up from where she was showing a reptilian diplomat how to properly fold napkins and smiled that smile that had probably launched 1,000 successful parent-teacher conferences. "Oh, it's really quite simple, dear. Everyone, no matter where they come from or how scary they look, just wants to know that someone cares about them. These boys weren't bad, they were just lonely and eating terrible food." She gestured toward Vex, who was helping an elderly senator with his wheelchair ramp. "Look at them now. Give someone a proper meal, a clean place to sleep, and remind them to call their family, and you'd be amazed how much their attitude improves." President Martinez approached our unlikely hero with what I recognized as the expression of someone about to make an offer she hoped wouldn't be refused. "Mrs. Kowalski, we've been discussing the possibility of appointing you as our official ambassador to the galactic community. The position comes with a full staff, diplomatic immunity, and your own spaceship." Grandma considered this for exactly 3 seconds before shaking her head. "Oh, that's very nice, dear, but I couldn't possibly. Who would take care of my garden? Besides, young Vex here has promised to bring me home every Sunday for dinner with the family. Haven't you, sweetheart?" The former galactic conqueror, who was currently wearing an apron that read, "Kiss the Cook" in 17 different languages, beamed like a child who'd just been praised for cleaning his room. "Of course, Grandmother Mildred. We wouldn't miss it. I'm bringing my famous Zephyrian Jello mold." And that, folks, is how humanity avoided extinction and accidentally became the galaxy's most popular neighbors. Not through superior firepower or brilliant strategy, but by sending one grandmother with a purse full of tissues and an inexhaustible supply of disappointed looks. The best part? According to the latest reports, violent conflicts have dropped by 93% in sectors where Kowalski Protocol diplomatic interventions have been deployed. Turns out, most galactic wars can be resolved with a good talking to and some homemade cookies. Who knew that the most powerful weapon in the universe was the ability to make someone feel like they'd let their grandmother down?